dxctl was released with Digital Experience Portal 9.5 starting with CF19. This CLI allows you to deploy, update, and remove portal deployments. It also allows you to collect diagnostic data when troubleshooting issues. In this video, I will show you how to use dxctl to update an existing portal deployment with Digital Asset Management and Content Composer on Red Hat OpenShift from 9.5 CF191 to CF192. So first, let's look at my existing deployment in the OpenShift web console. I have a project called DX Portal where I currently have CF191 deployed. If we look at the pods, we can see I have the core pod plus the Digital Asset Manager and Content Composer. If you would like details on deploying DX Portal with Digital Asset Manager and Content Composer, please see the video in the description on deploying below. Now, if we take a quick look at my persistent volumes, we can see I have a volume for DAM, one for my DAM persistence pod, and one for my WP profile, which are all bound. Now going back to Portal, we can see I have an existing collection in my digital assets. We can see Content Composer is up and running. And I've created a sample Wickham library where I've added some images from the Digital Asset Manager. I've also created a page with some sample Wickham content and an image component for my digital assets. Now, reviewing the documentation, it first advises to take all the appropriate backups. You should back up your WP profile and all the persistent volumes in use, as well as the persistence and portal databases before making any changes. The next step is to download the 9.5 CF192 software package and upload the new images to my repository. If you need help with either of these two topics, please see the additional videos in the description below. An important note in this documentation is that we need to update the database user and password in the wkplc db domains properties file. This is assuming we've done a database transfer in this deployment, which I have done so. At this point, the documentation describes the update process using the scripts. Since I'm using dxctl, I don't need to worry about the scripts. Jumping over to my terminal, this is my image repository, and we can see I've already tagged and uploaded the CF192 images to it. Now let's review my deployment properties file for my CF191 deployment. We can see the namespace or project in OpenShift, which is dx-portal, which we saw in the web console. My tag for the CF191 images is v95_191. I'll scroll through the properties file so we can see my current settings. I do not have remote search nor OpenLDAP enabled in this deployment. As we saw earlier, I have the Experience API, Content Composer, and Digital Asset Management all enabled. The min and max replicas for all my features are set to 1 for simplicity's sake. Now let's jump over to my CF192 properties file. This is the file I downloaded with the CF192 software package. I copied all my settings from my CF191 properties file to this file, except I updated the tags for all my images to v95_192. My volumes, storage classes, and all other settings match. I also have my DB domains properties file open in this editor. We can quickly search for DB password, and we'll want to make sure the password for the database user is set for all my databases before updating the deployment. The reason we need them set is because when we apply the update, multiple config engine tasks, including the apply CF task, will run to update the WP profile. Not having the user and password set could cause these tasks to fail. Now, starting in 9.5 CF192, transaction logging for the core image was updated to improve performance. This will require either a dynamically provisioned persistent volume or an available volume on the cluster. I've already created a persistent volume for this. I'm using the same storage class as my WP profile volume, and this needs to be a read-write-once volume. With all that in place, I'll jump over to my terminal, which I have configured to access my OpenShift cluster. I already have the CF192 software package downloaded and my CF192 deployments property file ready to go. So all I need to do is run the dxctl command with the update flag. If we switch over to our web console and go to the pods view, we should see lots of activity. All the existing pods will be terminated and should be recreated with the CF192 images. Of course, the most important one is the core pod, and when it gets recreated, it should go into init mode. If we click on the pod and check the Events tab, we can easily verify that the CF192 image is being used by the pod. At this point, the core pod's WP profile needs to get updated, so we just need to wait for this process to complete. The time for the update to complete will vary depending on your hardware, but once the update is complete, the core pod will go back to running ready mode. If we examine the persistent volumes, we can see the existing 3 volumes are still bound, plus we now see an additional volume for the transaction logging. Now, to make sure the update was successful, the documentation says to check the config trace.log, which is under the WP profile config engine logs directory. Specifically, we'll want to confirm that the apply CF task finished with a build successful, which in my case it did, so we're all good there. Now let's access my portal server. First, we can verify my collection is still present. If we access my sample test page, we can still see that it has the sample content and image. Finally, if we go to the About portlet, we should now see CF192.